Sesaat lagi Anda akan menyaksikan The Big Idea Forum in association with
The world is changing. As climate change, inequality, and environmental degradation accelerate, businesses face an undeniable truth. Success can no longer be measured by profit alone. A new wave is sweeping across industries where responsibility, sustainability, and ethics shape the future. This is where ESG, environmental, social, and governance, becomes more than just a trend. It's a transformation. Indonesia, the largest economy in Southeast Asia, is at a turning point. Its rapid growth presents both immense opportunities and immense challenges. From protecting its rich biodiversity to ensuring equitable prosperity for its people, Indonesia has the potential to lead the region in sustainable progress. The key is embracing ESG principles. ESG is not just a set of ideals. It's a blueprint for sustainable growth, resilience, and long-term success. By reducing environmental impact, fostering social equity, and ensuring ethical governance, businesses in Indonesia are transforming the future. They're moving beyond profit, creating value for communities, protecting the environment, and fostering trust. And for investors worldwide, ESG is becoming a measure of corporate integrity and sustainable innovation. Indonesia's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2060 and the Global Sustainable Development Goals puts ESG at the heart of the nation's future. In this new era, collaboration between businesses, government, and civil society is essential. Together, they hold the power to redefine Indonesia as a global leader in sustainability, turning challenges into opportunities, risks into rewards. Today, in the Big Idea Forum, we bring together visionary leaders from across sectors to chart the path forward. How can Indonesia fuel its sustainable success through ESG? How can we ensure a future where profitability and responsibility go hand in hand? Let's create a better tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Big Idea Forum. I am Daisy Anwar, and it's truly an honor to have you all here today as we gather to explore a vital and transformative topic, beyond profit, how ESG is fueling Indonesia's sustainable success. And today we gather at a significant juncture where the world is facing multifaceted challenges, from climate change to social disparities, and urging us to rethink our strategies for development. And this forum is a call to explore how environmental, social, and governance, or known as ESG principles, can transform Indonesia's business landscape and drive sustainable success. And we're also reminded, and this is important, our SDG Sustainable Development Goals are many and yet still far from being achieved, while 2030 deadline is getting closer. But at the same time, we also have committed to reducing our carbon emission to zero by 2060. Now, altogether, that is a tall order, seeing that our economic growth target is also getting higher. So, can we achieve economic growth and reduce poverty inclusively and sustainably without sacrificing the environment and the health of the planet. To discuss these issues, we're privileged to be joined by experts who bring deep insight and diverse perspectives to this dialogue. So allow me to introduce our distinguished speakers. We have, first of all, very honored to have Pak Setio Budiantoro, Manager of Economic Development Pillar, National Secretariat of SDGs from the Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas. Pak Budi, very welcome, and we hope you will share insights on how ESG principles are integrated into Indonesia's development goals. And next, we have Sujala Pant, a Deputy Resident Representative at UNDP Indonesia. Welcome, Sujala. And Sujala has been a key figure in promoting sustainable development and empowering collaboration between various sectors to achieve sustainable development goals. Next, Bulani. Lani Haryanti, Regional Program Manager ASEAN from Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, who we hope will provide valuable perspectives on transparency and, of course, accountability in ESG reporting, as well as the role of standardized reporting in enhancing trust. Very important, Bulani, very big welcome. And last but not least, Speaker Nico Safavi, CEO of PT Mowilex Indonesia. Under his leadership, PT Mowilex has set a benchmark for sustainability in the corporate sector, exemplifying how ESG values can be seamlessly integrated into business practices. But Nico, a very big welcome to you. And as this is a collaborative forum, there will be an opportunity for you in the audience to ask questions to our panelists later. And so I encourage you all to take part in the discussion. So to begin our sessions, I would like to invite, first of all, Pak Budi from our regulator to share his thoughts on how Indonesia is integrating ESG into the National Development Agenda, as well as the role of responsible resource management. Pak Budi,
okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay. So. Yes, thank you, Budesi. So, actually, the business sector and also the government sector actually has the same objective, because of course, for the business sector cannot survive if the development is unsustainable. So that is why we actually we have the shared objective or the shared outcome that we would like to have. And related to government, related to ESG, the challenge of how we make the compatible between government and also business sectors is related to have the common language. And then we have the ESG. And then also we have the SDGs also. So actually ESG is part of our SDGs. Yeah, part to implement SDGs also. So that is why that now we have the initiative of SDGs taxonomy. The SDGs taxonomy is how we integrate the ESG. There are a lot of standard of ESG like Bulani in here related to GRI that already used by many companies. And then also we have like GEARS. We have like also GEARS actually used by Apindo. And then from IFC that is used by Kadin. And also we have also the OJK. So OJK actually also promote or to make compulsory for the financial institutions and also public listed company to have the sustainability report. So actually that is the ESG. So now how we have to make the common language. Actually ESG and SDGs actually nearly the same actually. But then how to make that the classification of the detailing of the ESG that is also contribute to the SDGs, the indicators of SDGs. So that is why to make that every stakeholders feeling comfortable using the common language. So from the national level of the government and also subnational level, and also from the NGO, CSO, they feel comfortable to use the common language. So that is why we make the SDG taxonomy. So actually, how we align the standard of ESG to contribute to SDGs, and then these companies that they contribute to this aligning their activities to SDGs. So they actually are fulfilling the standard of, let's say, from the OJK, POJK number 51, 2017, and also related to the ESG, several standard of ESG, and also from the GEARS, from the APindo, and also from the Kadin. So that is why we try to orchestrate all of the efforts to achieve sustainability SDGs. So that is the idea. So actually, the challenge of Indonesia not about the good intention, because we already have it, but connecting the dots of all of the intention, the good intention, how we can collaborate and also working together. So that is the.
So how have we been collaborating? Especially like you mentioned, we have sort of the national sort of mainstreaming of SDGs and ESGs, and hopefully everybody is complying.
Actually,
but particularly in the regions, because everybody has to be on board, and I think having sort of the regional and the provincial level and the city level.
So actually, just yesterday. So yesterday, I had a meeting with the provincial level in 13 provinces, and then next week we'll with 23 provinces from Eastern Indonesia. So we try also to convince and also to push further for the government in subnational level to working with much more inclusively and systematically. And that is why ESG is very important for that, because now we actually have the same intention, and then if we have the indicators much more nitty-gritty, so actually finally the devil is in detail. So to make this one related to the indicators and the parameters and everything, and also the locus, because now we are focusing in the area, so to working together. So that is the idea, not only in national level, but also in subnational level. So that is what we would like to spread, that if we do the gotong royong, working together. So I think a lot of things we can do.
But how do we score?
The scoring?
Yes.
So
it's everybody, because you mentioned about the common language, you mentioned about using the
So,
tools. Is everybody using the tool, and are we checking all the boxes here, and what is the profile?
So actually, who already submitted to the National Action Plan in achieving SDGs, around 200 from non-state actors, including mostly from companies. But of course, we need to push further, and then we now develop also the dashboard to make much more easier, much more easier for the companies, so they can input it, and then they will see this company, so they contribute to which indicator, to which goal, to which target of SDGs, and also to which GRI ESG standard, GRI, GEARS, POJK, so something like that. So that is the idea. So if the company then submitted their action plan, and then they will see actually what is their contribution related to this many standard. So to make it easier for them also.
Okay.
So that is the idea.
Just very quickly, what's your finding on the ground? I mean, there's one thing filling in reports and ticking the boxes, but in terms of the actual real implementation.
Yeah. So we need, of course, we need to the benchmark, of course. So related to the achievement of SDGs. So during the UN meeting at that time in September, so as the situation related to achieving SDGs is very gloomy.
Very gloomy.
Very gloomy in global level, because the achievement is only 17%.
Wow.
And we know
we're already
that
2024.
Yeah,
we don't have very well.
Just 6 years. Yeah.
5 more years, really.
Yeah, 5 more years, and then, but Indonesia is quite different. So we are outlier because Indonesia is the achievement is 62.5%.
Okay.
And then if we compare with other upper middle income country, so we are the highest. And during the survey of the commitment of government in achieving SDGs, so we are the highest in Asia.
Okay. Well, that is good
in
news.
Asia, yeah. In the world is the 7th, but in the upper level it's much more from Scandinavian countries. So we are not bad.
Okay,
so
we're
in
not bad.
Asia we are. So.
Sujala, let's have you from the international perspective. What do you think of Indonesia's mainstreaming of ESG and SDGs, and what do you think about the 62% when it comes to complying versus 17% on the global level? Just your thoughts on it.
Thank you so much. So I think maybe the starting point is, yes, we have 5 years left to 2030, which is when we've set the target for the SDGs, and many countries are indeed behind. So if we look at an aggregate figure, it's maybe not so optimistic or positive. But I think, the realities on the ground, the localized realities, not just country by country, but also at the subnational level, in different localities. What do those figures tell us? And as Pak Budi mentioned, definitely there's huge progress that is taking place in Indonesia. But again, some regions are faring better than others. So that's kind of the reality. What that means is we have to keep taking the necessary steps. And in that context, this approach that the ESG, the environmental social governance principle, allow us to think about, that when we're looking at undertaking certain investment decisions, that there are certain considerations that we should keep in mind, are really important and kind of have the potential to create the necessary changes, the transformative changes that we talk about, to bring some of this data from where they are now to something higher. And whether we talk about ESG or the SDGs, I think if you unpack the principles, they are about sustainability. They are about equitability. They are about protection of the environment. They're about the well-being of people, enabling that. How do we get there? So, from the UN's perspective, the UNDP in particular, these are extremely helpful frameworks and guidelines that Indonesia and member states have committed to when it comes to the SDGs, right? This is a global commitment that each member state has agreed to do their best to meet these goals. And what's different from the SDGs compared to, let's say, the Millennium Development Goals is that it's not only on developing countries, but developed countries, higher income countries also have a role to play in that. So the partnership, we know that whether it's about meeting ESG ambitions or the SDG goals per se, it's not going to happen on our own. So the partnerships are really, really important. And the partnerships and the kind of stakeholders that we have to work with are diverse. Yes, we need to work with the business sector, the private sector, but you need the enabling environment, you need the regulations. And as UNDP, Pak Budi mentioned, we need to connect the dots. That's kind of our strength. We connect with different actors in different sectors, different industry to say, okay, you're taking certain efforts. The situation, on the enabling side is this. How do we bring the two together? I believe that the impetus, the incentives that can be created for businesses, but also large public infrastructure projects to want to internalize the meaning of ESG. It's not just a tick marking exercise.
It has to be part of your DNA now.
It has to be part of your DNA. And of course, colleagues from the industries will know far much more, but it's really about creating a brand value. And we know that there is increasing interest to ensure that your business brand, that your investors and shareholders actually have an interest in making sure that what they're putting their money in, or as a consumer, what I'm buying, actually takes into account some of these environmental concerns. And those are the little changes that need to happen, these trigger points, to enable us to get closer to this target that we've set for ourselves in 2030.
Okay, so Jala, can you just give us a little bit more sort of on the best practices or concrete examples where ESG implementation is a success and how UNDP has been sort of a part of that collaboration?
Yes.
And what are sort of the key sort of success factors, and conversely, when things don't go quite as well, when perhaps ESG reporting or SDGs is just part of CSR or even sort of like a greenwashing in order to tick the boxes?
Yes, so I think one of the challenges obviously is that there are many different ways in which you can do ESG reporting, right? There's different standards, there's not one overarching guideline that exists. And I think that the multiplicity of these guidance is one of the challenges that we have. Sorry to start with the challenge, but that's one of the challenges we have globally. It's what I mentioned earlier, it's really internalizing the need to do this. So for instance, in Indonesia, we've worked very closely with the Ministry of Finance, for instance. During when Indonesia hosted the G20, the ESG guidelines for infrastructure projects was issued by the Ministry of Finance, and we engaged heavily on that. What that does is kind of set out certain guidelines about what infrastructure-oriented projects, with public-private partnerships should take into account. So there's guidance there, but it's also about how do you report on that, right? So what are the elements, what are the KPIs that should be taken into account as we are pipelining and developing bankable projects that would meet some of these criteria. So that's maybe it's not mandatory, so it's still a voluntary thing.
But overall, you're happy with how Indonesia is doing? Are we on the right track?
We're definitely on the right track. Indonesia in the region is actually one of the most impact investment friendly countries. Why? Because I wanted to understand why that is the case. Because it is such a vast country, whether we're talking about tourism, whether we're talking about natural resources, or whether we're talking about culture, there are so many potential sectors where these positive externalities can be reached. And that diversity really opens the door for many types of investors who are interested, who want to do something better, and the opportunities are quite vast because of the context that we have in Indonesia. So in that sense, Indonesia has quite a large market share in the region in terms of the impact and investment financing that's coming.
Okay, that's great. Over to you, Bu Lani. Of course, it's all about, when it talk about ESG and SDGs, transparency is very important. We also have to make sure that not only the government mainstreaming, also the public sector and the private sector and the subnationals, governments, we all need to be on board. But on the transparency side, on the reporting side, share with us, your findings from the Global Reporting Initiative. What does it look like? I mean, are people ticking the right boxes, but at the same time, how honest are they when it comes to, their achievement?
So, GRI is the Global Reporting Initiative. We are the standard for sustainability reporting. So basically, sustainability reporting is where the ESG data sits. Now, how about Indonesia? So it's really interesting. When I started joining GRI, OJK has just released the regulations on sustainability reporting. It was responded with a mixed feeling. So those who are already reporting, they are happy with the progress. Those who are not yet familiar with the terms, they are a little bit resistant. What it is for, isn't it expensive, it's difficult, it means extra resources to be put just to prepare a report. But that was back then, 2017, 2018. OJK did a preliminary research. They recorded only about 44 sustainability reports at the time by 2017 reporting. But do you know how many reports right now? I think we have over 800. So almost, because we have over about 900 listed company. So I think more than 90% is already reporting. It's becoming mandatory starting 2019 for the big bang. So we have the first one, additional 40 report from the banks. After the COVID, I think during 2021 or 2022, we have 600 and then now around 900.
So share us about the kind of findings you get from these reportings.
Oh, that's another issue.
What do they look like? And what are the key sort of highlights? You know, what
well,
lessons
they look pretty,
learned?
definitely. And it looks so bulky.
So people actually like have to go through all of these.
Yeah.
Are they easy, first of all? I mean,
yes.
You know, compliance is important, but you know, if it makes it difficult for them, like extra work, then you know, it may not be so.
Let's go back to the concept of sustainability reporting. So the concept is for companies to provide the information on what they are doing, how they do business. So the vision is to be transparent to the public or to the stakeholders. So what is in the sustainability report? We need to understand that this is a journey. It's not easy. Sustainability report doesn't come from one unit, the corporate secretary unit. It comes from different units. The environment unit, the HR unit, the external unit, the CSR teams, and the other teams. So it takes time. Not every unit within the company understand on why they need to submit the data and write another report. But it's becoming good, actually. So those who started the report because it's mandatory, compliant-based, at least we have the data there.
Okay, well, in terms of quantity, you can see the increase of this reporting, but in terms of quality, how, I mean, do you actually see the increase in, you know, better governance, better sort of social, you know, concern, better sort of environmental, you know, policies?
That's a little bit different.
I just want to, you know, see what can we learn from this data. I mean, we can, you know, we can drown under so much data, but what does it teach us? And where, you know, on what sort of path does Indonesia, you know, can follow coming from, you know, what we learn from this data?
So from the data sides, when we started, there are not many sustainability reports in Indonesia. And then there are not many research agencies interested in mining the data. Well, to be fair, there was like only 40 to 60 reports. But then by the time it gets to 600 to 900, we have more academicians. It's interesting to set up centers to do research on the data. For example, like the Airlangga University, they set up centers, they collected all the ESG data. So that will be very interesting to see where we are in progressing. So far, the quality of the data, let's just put it this way. We did a research with NUS to take a look at the ASEAN profile in terms of climate disclosures. It's based on 2021 report. In principles, the numbers of companies in the 6 biggest economy in the Asian region starting to report on climate is increasing compared to in the last 3 years from the last report. But we have a challenge in terms of an actual strategy. Target is set within the report. It's not uniform with the 60-something%.
Where are we compared to other ASEAN countries? Not just, you know, the amount of compliance, but the quality
I'm going to use
our reporting.
the data on the number of company in a sustainability yearbook of the S&P. We started to have one company as part of the S&P Sustainability Yearbook, I think in the last 2 years. Philippines also have one. Singapore, I think below 10. Malaysia is a little bit the same. But Thailand has more than 30 or 40 companies in the sustainability yearbook.
Okay. And, you know, the reporting is one thing, but is there real kind of, you know, checking on the ground, making sure that they are, you know, walking the talk and that they are... It's not just, okay, it's another form to fill.
Yeah. So it's called an assurance system. So if a financial report get audited, a sustainability report get assurance. So basically there is a systems to take a look at it. But the issue is that we are just, in Indonesia is just starting, same thing with Philippines. So getting people to, getting company to report is the first step. Let's see what OJK is going to say in 2026.
Let's just take a little break. before we go to you, Nico, you will actually be one of our sort of examples of when a company does ESG right and when it actually adopts sustainability and also environmental concerns in the corporate DNA. Let's take a little break. Beyond profit, how ESG is fueling Indonesia's sustainable success, which is the topic for the Big Idea Forum today. And now I turn to our speaker, Nico Safavi, CEO of PT Mowilex Indonesia. Let's learn from you, Nico, with the journey that PT Mowilex has gone through in Indonesia. Tell us how you adopt ESG and also the Sustainable Development Goals as part of the company's DNA?
That's a really difficult question, because one of the things we did early on is take a look to see what do companies do. Essentially, our constituents, our stakeholders have always been three groups: employees, shareholders, and customers. And all of those three stakeholders we have to manage within a frame of some legal framework, whether it's labor law, tax law, environmental law, etc. But what we saw coming early on in 2018 when we embarked on this was the emergence of another constituency, and the fourth constituency, and that's the environment. It's not that it wasn't always there, but through technology, internet, social media, environment found its voice. And we saw that voice as both a risk and an opportunity. A risk in the sense that we have seen teenagers challenge companies about the ingredients in their products, and companies having to recall, reformulate. Even in Indonesia, we've seen a K-pop movement that derailed an investment, an FDI investment here, because people didn't like the environmental impact. So in 2018, we set out this goal to see, can we take advantage of this? Because we had a legacy already as Indonesia's first waterborne paint manufacturer. We had a legacy of having certified our products in the 80s to be applied to toys, wooden toys that were being exported to Europe. And we wanted to go down the carbon neutrality path. And it began with that journey. And by fourth quarter 2019, we managed to certify carbon neutral scope 1 and 2. And since then, it's been scope 1 and 2 and 3. For us, it's an unusual endeavor in that we're not public. No one's asking us to do this. It is goal alignment between employees, management, and the shareholders. It's virtually impossible to do this right if the shareholders' interests are not aligned, because it costs money. And so we're talking about profitability and beyond profitability. We know that, but we also see an opportunity in that by engaging in the activities that we've engaged in, for instance, investing in renewable energy, planting 50,000 mangroves, and working with NGOs to protect habitat, doing all the things that we think collectively address the negative externalities of our business to be offset in some shape or form. By doing these things, we think we can resonate well with new audiences, with a younger demographic. We know that 80% of Indonesian consumers want to do business with ethical companies. So can we turn this around and turn it into something that can actually produce a bottom line and create a virtuous circle as opposed to a vicious cycle? So that was the journey for us. And it's not easy. It's time consuming. It's resource consuming. And the message doesn't always sort of get spread out as well as we had hoped. You know, the interest level is there among academics, among NGOs, among government, but not always in the consuming public. And we really think that the barrier between us and the consumer getting on board is disclosures that go beyond the financial and the corporate disclosures, but actually go down to product labels so that you can see the impact of your consumption. And we want to see that happen We think it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And then we'd really like to see it happen expressed in terms of the useful life of all the products. The worst thing you can do is to extract from the earth, develop a product that lasts a year, but it can be reformulated to last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and that's better use of resources. And addressing the Sustainable Development Goals is certainly one of them. You can't just be narrowly focusing on one aspect if you're going to try to get an audience to pay attention to you. We are a business at the end. We're not an NGO. We want to sell more product. But all of those things that we do actually help in a number of other ways. So we've become a great place to work. And so we have an easier time recruiting. We've put out management trainee programs that have attracted thousands and thousands of applicants for 6 positions. So we know people want to work for us because they want to embrace the values that we stand for. They want to be attached and working for a company that reflects their values.
Was it difficult to get the buy-in in the beginning? And just out of curiosity, how are you walking the talk and reducing emission in the way you do business?
Yeah. The buy-in at the beginning essentially is shareholder. And I'm lucky enough as an operator, as a CEO, to have the shareholders backing to do this. How do we walk the walk and do this? So we invested, for instance, we knew that offset is not the only path. Offsets can help, but we have to inset as much as possible. And for us was investment in renewable energy, a current investment that we are undertaking, waiting for final permitting. We hope that by the end of next year, 1/5 of all of our products will be produced with renewable energy. We invested in a new plant that is very energy efficient, that reduced on a per tonnage basis 7% our CO2 emissions. We invested in building management tools to regulate the temperature, to save money, to save energy, to save CO2. A lot of little things that you do on that. And then we look at what else is left over. So we realized that we had older paints that had to be discarded, so we reformulated and we created a recycled paint. We don't sell it at a profit. We just want to make sure that these mined, harvested material don't end up in a dump someplace. We gave consumers a choice. We are the first to introduce a paint whose resins are based on agricultural oils and bio-based as opposed to petroleum-based. It also has features such as removing formaldehyde from the air that's usually emitted from carpeting or wood furniture. So we have to address a lot of different things. And the workplace, you know, I'm lucky enough that I have a really strong management team. It happens to be that 5 of my 7 executives are women because we have no glass ceilings or glass floors. And that whole environment is sort of very conducive to making sure that we not just checkmark all the 17 SDGs, but we actually do something about it.
Now, I'm interested to, I mean, you studied ESG even before it became mandatory. Normally, you know, companies, what's this? You know, more things, you know, more forms to fill, more reporting, more sort of time-consuming activities to do this. I'm just curious to know, normally the question is, what's in it for me? I mean, why? So my question is, why? And the things that you do, what sort of tangible benefits or impact you feel, you know, positively for the company? Because you mentioned that it requires, you know, resources, it requires sort of creativity as well as, you know, changing the mindset of both the company as well as the consumers that you are serving.
Two reasons. The first one sounds rather ambiguous, but I would say a moral stance, moral satisfaction that what you've done as a business is the right thing. I mean, we know that, at least in our industry, there are products out there that have very harmful ingredients in them that we make sure does not end up in our product. And so be able to sleep at night and know that you've done the right thing is really important. And secondly, we actually do think that we can sort of lever this into becoming more profitable. We've had really strong growth during this period. I'm not sure if all of it's tied to the initiatives we've taken with respect to ESG. You have to do so many things right in order to be able to grow and generate profitability. But we think it's helped. And you know, just by being here as a mid-sized company, where normally you'd expect a publicly listed company to be in this seat, sort of gives you the sense as to why we're doing this, that we actually do see an end game. We don't think it's a long-lasting strategy. I mean, ESG shouldn't be a strategy. It is
It should be part of your way of doing
exactly.
business. Yeah.
It happens to be opportunistically a strategy at the moment, but eventually it should go away. It should be like bragging about complying with labor laws.
No.
Nobody does that. You know?
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, morals and ethics, and these are two words we don't normally hear. You know, in companies, they talk about the bottom line, they talk about profit, and they talk about, you know, if they're making an impact, it's, you know, CSR, and, you know, doing sort of the bare minimum of what the government tells you to do. But let's look ahead. We just have a new, you know, government, a new administration, and the growth target is, you know, I hear it's 8%, 0% poverty, 8% of growth. And I know ESG is environmental, social, and governance, but the E is also, there's the economic side to it. So how do you see us, you know, forging ahead, trying to make our target of reducing emission by 2060 to zero levels, SDGs to 2030, and yet also getting that 8% growth, but doing it sustainably?
Yeah.
This is a really, you know, a tall order,
Yeah.
I think. You know.
Yeah, I think.
And can we be optimistic about it?
Yeah, I think, of course, this is a very hard question, of course. Yeah, but I think we need to be optimistic because, actually, we have really abundant resources, not only from the fossil fuel, but many things. I mean, from the agriculture, from the plantation, and everything. So, the challenge of us is related to how to make this growth also inclusive. So, how to make the broad development, how to make also another challenge, the growth through equity. So that is also the challenge. So to spread the breadth, the prosperity for the middle class, actually. That is the challenge that we have. So I think the downstreaming of industry, especially not only for like fossil fuel or from the natural resources, I think that is very important, and the creative economy. So, and also for the sustainable tourism also. So that is the new oxygen of economy now is coming, and that is why we try to mainstream this through the green economy, the low carbon development. That is what we try to pursue for that, and also the blue economy. As we know that actually the stealing of the fish is around 4 billion yearly, $4 billion yearly, and that is 17% of global level. So I think there are a lot of things, and that we would like to, of course, explore, and then a lot of blind spot actually that we don't see, but now we try to push further for that, especially with not only the 8% and then exploiting everything, but through that. So that is why the challenge is how we make our economy to be much more complex.
Sujala, I mean, not just Indonesia, obviously the world, we need to do this together, collaboratively. We can't, you know, have one country, you know, we're doing SDGs and the rest is said, oh no, we're just going to go back to, you know, our fossil fuels and so on. There's a new government in the US that may not be as, you know, energized about the environmental issues. Just tell us, you know, where are we going in the world, and can we balance economic growth with environmental sustainability? That's always the big question, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, look, definitely we live in such a globalized world that what happens in one country, in one national elections, will, at least in the short term, send some ripples about, you know, what's going to happen, and maybe there are some questions that are being raised. But this is a collective effort, right? And I think the commitments that we see from other countries. You know, it's not just one country that can make or break the progress. At least I'd like to hope that it isn't. And I think when countries themselves are committed to meet certain targets and you know, integrate in their core business processes, in their planning processes, in their budgeting processes, these ideas about the positive externalities, you know, environmental considerations, considerations for women's needs that are quite specific and different, and how do you invest to meet those demands. I think that is really the answer to it's incremental steps that, when taken by many, many different people, it will you know, make a difference. I think what we've also seen is that there is the economic and environmental concerns, for instance, are not contradictory because, you know, we also have to look at short-term and long-term objectives, right? So perhaps in the short term, the quick wins are not compatible, let's say, with environmental concerns. But if you look at the kind of risks that we're facing, you know, natural disasters, long-term climate change impact risks, that we can sort of anticipate for, but we know that if our decisions today don't take into account what is likely to happen, and with all the technologies that we have, with all the data that is available to us now, you know, there is a lot of foresight thinking that is taking place, which we have to take into account. So not actually paying attention to some of these considerations would be more harmful in the long term because your resilience to any shocks that happen later would actually be far lower. So I think it is, you know, looking at the compatibility of economic growth going side by side with a respect for the environment, minimizing emissions, etc. We're looking at valuing nature differently, right? So in Indonesia is endowed with so many natural resources. Many of the communities rely on those resources for their livelihoods, whether it's by selling the raw material or by adding value to some of those products. What we, you know, many of the initiatives that we have going on in the project, in the country, with many partners, UNDP is not the only one, is to show that communities preserving, let's say, the forest, or you know, minimizing the exploitation in the loose sense of the word, using those resources carefully, will actually have longer term benefits, because the natural resources, for instance, as an example, is also what attracts tourists to come to Indonesia. So if you're preserving your natural resources, whether it's the marine life or you know, the wonderful the forests that we have, you will get some benefits. It may not be the profits from the angle that you had seen, which is, I need to turn this around into something, but it's the value of nature itself. And I think there's an increasing recognition that there is an economic value to preserving nature in this instance.
But just from, you know, the industry, from the corporate side, are we walking the talk in terms of policies and regulations? Is it easy for companies and industries to actually, you know, who are like you, who care about things like morals and ethics, to actually implement this without any obstacle or extra headache?
I think there's good intent, certainly, but I think more coordination to align various policies and initiatives probably will go a long way. So for instance, when you're manufacturing goods and you're selling to the government, you need to have a minimum local content, TKDN. But
is that good or bad?
It's good, but does it consider also addressing the country's 2030 and 2060 goals with respect to sustainable development and reaching net zero? And if it doesn't, then companies that are investing resources into those efforts are obviously going to be disadvantaged. So does it address the totality of the vision? Not always. Does it in components? Yes. So I think a little bit more alignment there will probably create more incentives for companies to allocate resources to becoming more environmentally responsible. I'm sort of cautious about using the word sustainable, but I see it as environmental responsibility. So some of that would be
incentive and creating a sort of positive business
Absolutely.
climate. This is something that, you know, the government really needs to make sure, because we still need to attract investors, right? And investors, I mean, are investors sort of looking at ESG compliance as part of their sort of impact funding decision, or whether their interest to invest in a country or not? Does it make a difference on a particular sort of company's performance and compliance?
Well, I would like to think that it does, because based on numbers or those that signs the principle of responsible investment, it is increasing. So it does with OJK sustainable finance regulations, which is mandatory for all different type of financial service institutions. The awareness is starting to grow, and then it's actually required by OJK that you have some sort of screening mechanisms in place to show that sustainable finance is actually adopted by the banks or the other investment agency. So yes.
Okay, so I mean, economic growth and environmental concerns shouldn't be sort of, in opposition. One should be with the others, but I'm just afraid, on the moral hazards, because the things about government, it's short-lived, right? They always think short terms, and we have to be very careful with shortcuts and kind of and you lose focus on the long-term aspect. So let's get questions and opinions, or just, yes, if you could, we have one here at the front. Maybe I'll just gather three first, just very quickly. Yes, identify yourself. Who would you like to answer the question? If you could just make it short and sweet, that would be lovely.
Check. Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ecosystem Venture Builder. So we are a venture builder that is focused on building impact ventures, especially for climate technologies and climate solutions. Since we've been working with around 300 founders in the past couple of years and directly built 8 climate solutions, I'm wondering about the discussions just now. Suyala mentioned about how Indonesia is such a great place to impact investing. And then the discussion about young people. I think some of the founders here today that I know are young people, very driven to build climate solutions. However, sometimes it feels like it's not as clear how big of an impact it is that innovations and entrepreneurship that are driven by the local companies, especially the startups and impact ventures, can make, because it feels like there are less concern given, whether it's from policies, whether it's from connecting with the larger value chain, with the mid-sized or larger corporations, or even in the development spaces. There are a lot of challenges happen. So my questions would be, how big is actually the role of impact entrepreneurship and innovations to address and to further achieve the SDGs target that we are discussing today? And the second is, are there specific strategies that are currently being implemented in your respective organizations that we can tap into? Okay,
you've got 2 questions there.
Oh, sorry.
Any particular person you'd like to get answers from?
I would like to open it to all the panels.
Okay, so everybody. Okay, next. Oh, wow. I'm happy. Everybody's energized. Well, let's start from the front row first. Here we have...
Okay, my name is Zainal Arifin from PLN, Indonesia listed company. So I have a question about the ESG implementation, especially at the micro level, at firm or company level. So my question may be for Mr. Nico. Yeah. So for having good score of ESG, indeed we need several effort, several action, sources, and so on. It's not free. Yeah. You already mentioned, for example, if we need to reduce the environmental impact of energy usage at the firm, we need to move from the fossil fuel-based energy to green, clean energy such as renewable energy. So it's costly. So my question is, how do you keep balance between the cost you should spend with, on another hand, the benefit you hope to get? Sometimes it's not on financial form.
Okay, great question. Maybe one more. Yes, and then I'll do another round of question and answer session. Don't worry.
Devin from UNDP.
Yes, David.
So I happy.
David, we could stand up so we can all see you.
Pak Budi and Musjala mentions about the sustainable financing, right? We have the gap around 4.7 trillion US dollar on the reaching the SDGs in 2030. Even though Pak Budi mentions that Indonesia is quite a positive way to attain the SDGs, is 60%. Yeah, Pak. However, how to close this gap from the country perspective, hand in hand with development partners, and also involving communities, NGO, to reach this kind of accelerate this goals and closing the gap. I think Pak Budi and Musjala may answer these questions.
Great question. So let's just immediately answer with Pak Budi. We have about impact investment and the kind of strategies and more clarity on the size of the impact that is expected, and we have for LICO specifically and how to balance between the benefits and the cost, and how to basically accelerate, particularly as all these efforts need a huge amount of financing.
Yeah.
Would you with first and then Sujala?
Yeah, thank you. So before I answer that question, I think the first thing that I would really optimistic is about the demand. So the demand related to the product of which is sustainable now is growing, especially for the young people, and then also related to the finance. So now the awareness now is growing really fast, and also we also trying to make for the contributing for the financing SDGs, like Pujala also already mentioned, also related to the SDGs bond. So previously we issuing SDGs bond for the global market, and then to local market, but much more institutional. Now it's much more to retail market, to the retail market. So you can buy the SDGs bond for 1 million until 1 million rupiah until 10 million rupiah. So now we try to make the SDGs, the sustainability, to become the mainstream, to become the DNA, like you said. So that is the things. And then the second one related.
Sorry, the appetite for these bonds, you see, it's increasing.
Yeah, it's increasing.
So you can just buy them through apps, right?
Yeah, through apps. So and then I just heard like 4 days ago that the intention related to that is more than 3 trillion rupiah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 trillion rupiah. So it's good. It's good. And then for the SDGs bond in global market, so we have the AAA. The AAA, so it's and then the best bond for the thematic bond. So it's we are good. So that is the first in Asia, and then the second in the world after Mexico, and blue bond the first one, blue bond for the SDG. So it's really encouraging related to the sustainable finance, and also if we compare with other emerging economies like 44 emerging economies, we are also on the advanced, the most advanced one. So only the countries that advance, we are also part of them. So it's encouraging for that. And then related to the impact, I think that is the remain homework, like what Bu Lani said about the quality. About the quality, like Bu Desi said, related to how we avoid greenwashing, how we avoid SDGs washing. So I think now after the awareness, so that is one step. And then another step is related to the quality. I think now we much more pursuing about that. And also what I heard also, there will be a revision of the regulation of the POJK, the regulation of Financial Service Authority of 51/2017, to be much more quantified, much more measurable, something like that. So that is the idea, to make that one also much more accountable. So that is the things, and also much more transparent. And related to the financing gap. So the financing gap after COVID is $24 trillion until 2030. So it means in dollars is $1.7 trillion until 2030. So that is the financing gap. And what make us also encouraging, we just launched the regulation, the ministerial regulation related to the innovative financing. So that is the new regulation. So to make the foundation, like what we done it, this one, to make further, to push further the impact investor, the angel investor, and also commercial finance to have much more in blended financing. So to provide the landscape that actually convenience for them to make a greater impact, and then also how we incentivize and how we also have the recognition related to that. So that is the idea how we try to fill the financing gap, because now I think the most homework actually also in the world, if we see the financing gap in global world, so the financing gap yearly is $4.2 trillion, and then if we see the asset of from the banks, from the hedge fund and everything, financial institution, around $400 trillion. So it means only 1%. Only 1% we can achieve SDGs globally. Yep. But now how to make the investor, I mean the commercial investor, the commercial finance, also financing SDGs.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's not about the money, right? The money is there.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
about
the money is there. The money
putting
is there.
it in the right.
So how we
place.
try to leverage using the philanthropy or the risking or many incentivizing related to that to solve our common problem. So that is the idea.
Yeah, Sujala, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll maybe pick up on that last point, that it's not the money doesn't exist. There's a lot of wealth in this world. It's how do you get that to be channeled towards these, commonly agreed objectives around the SDGs, around other sort of sustainable outcomes. And we also know that the gap the financing gap that exists in the context of the money not being channeled to these purposes cannot be met by public finance alone. I mean, public finance is limited. Yep. And that's why the collaboration with private sector, the active engagement of private sector, of businesses, industries, it becomes so critical, which is why if you look at the sort of SDG-oriented investments that are happening, that actually, studies have shown that it actually generates trillions of dollars in return, but also in savings because of the risks that you've helped to mitigate. So I think it's really about, again, bringing together the different partners to show that it goes hand in hand. Your profit is not going to be affected because you're taking into account some of these concerns. And it's about channeling those resources, but enabling the instruments, right, and the mechanisms to channel that.
Is the appetite for impact funding actually going up?
It's going up.
These philanthropists you're talking about,
yes.
and most of them, we know who they are,
right.
And they own, tech companies, for example.
Yes.
Are they still sort of,
yeah, because
energized
there's more
about
efficient ways of doing businesses that are also cost savings, right? If you use digital technologies, etc., that also by default help to reduce some of the impacts that you might have. But also, it really goes back to demand. Are your consumers asking for that? Yes, they are. They are more discerning. Are your shareholders asking for that? Yes, they are. But that will only be sustained if the evidence shows that those upfront investments that are required to be more climate friendly, to be more mindful of women's working needs or persons with disabilities in your work context, is it making a difference? And that's where the reporting and the measurement really comes into play. Maybe very quickly on the role of smaller sort of impact ventures. One point I wanted to make is one of the biggest contributors to the Indonesian economy is MSMEs. 64 million MSMEs exist in the country. They contribute hugely to the GDP. However, just last week or a couple of weeks ago, there was an article by Apindo, I think, that said almost 60% of these MSMEs are not familiar with what the SDGs are or how they can be integrated into their business operations and their business processes. So I think that's where the challenge lies also, given the huge contribution that they're making to the economy, to growth. How do we get this group of incredible stakeholders to be more familiar, to internalize, to include in their own processes, because that will then really meet multiple objectives that we have. So there's a huge role to play, and we hope we can be a part of that.
Lani, do you want to add anything to, particularly impact funding, and do you see that money is being sort of directed into SDG activities and ESG companies?
Yes, there is increasing interest in funding impact. Now the issue is that how you formulate on your contributions, so that is one. The second is that how to make it scalable. That's one of the challenges, I think, among the startup. They come up with a good idea, but sometimes it's not economically, sellable, too expensive. So finding the right formula is the challenge. So if you are asking whether funding is there, funding is still there. Even it gets more refined than before. So if you find it a little bit difficult, it's because they are getting smarter and they want a clear measurement on what you are actually going to deliver. So yeah.
So profit is still an important factor.
Of course.
Profit, scalability.
And we are talking to business. Yes, it's not a business. It's not profitable.
Nika, balancing benefits with cost and
if anybody has the right answer, please help me.
Well, you seem to be doing quite well. How are you doing it?
Resource allocation is definitely a challenge. And at the risk of sounding a little bit pessimistic, there are no solutions in my mind. It's just trade-offs between what you do. Some of the decisions you make have an immediate impact, some of them have a longer-term impact, and some of the decisions you make today have a future negative impact that we have yet to confront. And so we don't take a linear view of this. We look beyond just energy and CO2 emissions. So for instance, that part actually, when we look at renewable energy investment, is one of the few things that is quantifiable. We can look at the cost of building out a renewable solar plant, for instance, versus the cost of buying electricity, versus the cost of buying electricity and offsets, or buying certified renewable energy certificates. But in other areas, it's not measurable at all. So for instance, we invest in a zero wastewater facility for our plant. That one doesn't have a clear return. We know it's the right thing to do because we know water is an incredibly precious resource. We do things in terms of reducing our plastics usage, going with thinner plastics, incorporating recycled content into it, but does it have a real measurable answer? No. So we do a number of things that we know we cannot measure, but we know intuitively and we know from science that these are the right things to do even if they don't have an accounting measure. In my mind, they have an economic measure, and it goes into measuring value versus cost, looking at externalities versus accounting profits. And balancing that is incredibly complicated. We look at, for instance, the fact that we stopped putting lead in paint. Leaded paint is incredibly dangerous and banned in parts of Europe for 110 years. It's still a product that you can buy here in Indonesia. And the impact is often measured in terms of IQ loss for children. And so we take that out. Is there impact to us? There's some measurable financial impact by having a different colorant in there, but not everything is measurable. But we can sort of tie back into our purpose. What is the purpose of our organization? What is our vision and mission? And if it satisfies our needs in that way, then we go ahead and take action.
It's because it's the right thing to do. Makes you feel good as well, right? Okay, let's have more questions. Let's have more from this side. Yes, we have our lady here.
Hi, my name is Johanna from OLX. My question is for Pak Budi. Just to continue with Nico's statement, is there any plan for the government to really set up a program or an incentive, for the private sector in order to sort of encourage more involvement and contribution. It's not only for the feel-good sort of impact, but also it can also become the competitive advantage for companies that could really encourage them to do what is the bigger contribution for this country.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And we have.
Thank you. My name is Tony Gultom from Marita Nickel. Just this year, when we know that they called as a green inflation. It's very famous lately. I'm happy that about 800 companies announced that's their sustainability, but we know more than 100 companies, 1,000 companies in Indonesia. Even they don't know how that's to develop the ESG. And the simple sometimes is by adding costs into their operation. And that's the impact to the community who buy the product, right? Probably Pak Budi, that's what is the plan of governments for the non-listed company? They don't follow the OJK regulation, right? That how they can follow and what is the guidelines that they can follow, right?
Does your company do reporting?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, good to hear.
Yes.
All right, Tommy, you wanted to, just stand up.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tommy from Tony Blair Institute. My question is for Bu Lani. Sorry to put you on the spot. Doing it right on in terms of ESG reporting, it's not just about going green, isn't it? My question is, in your opinion, how aware or how conscious are Indonesian companies in terms of the inclusivity side and the social justice dimension of their business practices? For example, implementing human rights principles in their operations and making sure that their value chain, respects the social justice part of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Pak Budi, fire away. Incentive.
Yeah, incentive, yeah.
It's very important.
So, yeah, very important. Yeah, of course.
You've got to have a carrot, not just a stick.
Then the stick. Okay, so actually, what now we are building now, we try to really involve related to if we have the ESG report, the sustainability report, and then in the sustainability report there is a sustainability strategy. There is a sustainability strategy, and that is what we would like to include this to our national action plan of SDGs. Or regional action plan for SDGs. So we try to make the mechanism of how the planning of the companies they can contribute to SDGs. So that is why in this year, next year we will have the national action plan. So we invite the companies to provide their action plan related to the ESG, related to the SDGs. And then we have the dashboard and everything. It's huge. I mean, hundreds of activities that you can mentioning which one contribute to these indicators, around 299 indicators. You can provide your contribution for that. And then the incentive. So we have the SDGs Action Award, of course. So that is also the recognition. We just have the SDGs Annual Conference, and then the Vice President give the SDGs Action Award to the companies which win. And then related to much more broader, we also have some ideas. This is what we would like to communicate also with the Chambers of Commerce and also the Employer Association related to how we can, because like this, because of course we should understand from the one who doing that, and then that is why we need to make the criteria which one that should be have the fulfill the criteria, and then can get the incentivized. And then we also consider like proper. So the 20% of this is gold, this is green and everything. So after the companies provide their intention, provide their planning in achieving SDGs, then we will see that, scrutinize, and then select that, and then we will try to incentivize by that bracket, something like that. Besides, of course, related to the SDGs Action Award.
Okay, I hope it's a lot simpler than it sounds, you know. They don't have to go through so many hoops in order to get the incentives. But to answer, what about that's the carrot, what about the stick for those who are not listing themselves in the reporting?
Related to the
thousands of them that are
because
still to be
of course
targeted.
The span of control, of the government related to this sustainability, this is much more voluntary. Of course, if you violate the law, of course, that is a problem, of course. But this is much more voluntary, so it's quite difficult for us to have the stick. But we much more to provide the carrot. So the recognition and also the credibility, that is the things that we push to the business sector.
Mulani, to answer the question on social, the S part of it, inclusivity, justice, and
well, we have the European Union. They issued this corporate sustainability directive on due diligence, which pushes forward the agenda on human rights due diligence and environmental due diligence. Is it impacting Indonesia? In a way, yes. Because now, I think in this year, starting last year, there has been movements about human rights due diligence among the business sectors. So I think Indonesia Global Compact Network and UNDP is organizing a lot of learning. And then I think it's good to start checking how many companies can claim that they have this so-called human rights policy and put in place a human rights due diligence systems. Is it growing? It's growing. Is it at the number that we would like to see? Not yet. We hope Pak Budi can advocate for the governments to push forward the agenda. Japan has issued a guideline. It's a guideline, but it's impacting the business in Indonesia. So basically, there is guidelines on how the supply chains of Japan company is actually respecting human rights and put in place a human rights due diligence. We work with some of their supplier, I think also JETRO, cannot remember the abbreviations, but it is being trickled down to Indonesia. So it's starting to be there. We just need a little bit more. So we hope that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope in the next 5 years that you are making significant progress. We're coming to the end of the session. It's been a very, very interesting discussion. Let's just get the final remarks from everybody. And also, this is the whole point of having this platform is all about collaboration, multi-state collaboration, because we're all in it together. We have to find solutions together. So perhaps, let's start with you, Nico, your message to the new government, and also, how can we be part of the solution for this incredibly complex problem?
It's a complex problem, and it keeps me awake at night, to be very frank. And I think about what it takes to actually make a difference. And at least in my mind, it is not just the government, it's not just the businesses, it's also the consumers. But you cannot fault consumers when they don't know the real impact of their consumption behavior, of their choices. And fortunately, there is now technology such as blockchain, where you can trace the impact of all of your inputs into your value chain and disclose in some shape or form to consumers what decisions they're making. And ultimately, their wallets will influence what businesses will do. If they prioritize one product over another, one service over another, we have to adapt as businesses. And we will then incorporate into our business model, into our product offerings, what they want. And really the challenge is to make sure all these three groups, the government, businesses, and consumers are working hand in hand. That's very difficult to do. I don't know the answer to that, but it's. But I
we
see
can
that,
always try.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why having discussions like this is very important. Get everybody on the same page. Sujala, your final remarks, thoughts, and hopes.
Yes, hopes. I am hopeful. I think that is a key message, and with that hope, I think is a recognition that it's a transition. It doesn't happen overnight, right? We have used and abused our natural resources, for centuries, and we've learned the hard way what happens. We're facing the consequences every day. So I think it is about a transition, and the numbers that Bulani mentioned, are very encouraging. Are they at this level that we need? Not yet. Is the finance at the level, the targeted finance at the level we need? Not yet. But there's progress being made, and I think that's the momentum that we want to keep seeing, and our efforts need to be put in ways that triggers and maintains that momentum. I would go as far as to say that in some ways, ESG, how is it fueling Indonesia's success, sustainable success? ESG is almost potentially a minimum. Do no harm, protect the environment. But if we're talking about transitioning to something better, to renewable energy, can we do more? Can we train our people, our young people, our employees to be able to use these new technologies better, so that you're not just reducing your emissions, but you're also creating the skills, that human capital, that trained, qualified human capital that is future fit to enable Indonesia's success to continue. I think we should provoke ourselves to do even more in that sense. And we talked about collaboration. One type of entity cannot do it together, but there is a huge role for regulatory environments, for the checks and balances, is it happening as it should? But ultimately, I think it comes down to behavioral change. What Nico was saying also, what are we demanding as consumers, as citizens from our government? If that pressure is created, then there is really no alternative but to respond to that. And so, we need to be part of that change, because the alternative is simply not a plausible one. So I'm hopeful. We have work to do, but I think we will get there slowly but surely.
Hopeful, pessimistic, optimistic?
No, very hopeful, of course.
Very hopeful. That's good to hear.
So there is a saying: if you don't measure things, you don't know where you are in your journey. So sustainability is a journey. Start your measurement so that you know where you want to go and how to get there. It's not something that can be done in a short term. So basically, the investment in sustainability is more on a long term. The challenge will be how to balance between short-term gain that you need to deliver and the long-term impact that you need to think of, that you are going to contribute to in the future. So just start the journey and enjoy it. Hope we get to the point together.
It may be a rocky ride, but if we know where we're going, if everybody's rowing in the same direction, we should get there eventually, right, Pak Budi? I mean, this is something that the government needs to be at the helm.
So I think what we would have, I think, what is very important is related to the imagination. The imagination, the paradigm, the mindset that this is that we should have, and we should have the very optimistic imagination, and that is possible also. So to make us much more optimistic, and there are a lot of examples actually, like Pak Nico said. Actually, there is also examples that is possible. So the challenge is about the asymmetry information and asymmetry knowledge. So how we try to see that what we already done, this one, this is the good one, this is possible. So we don't convince the people by just saying, but with the solid evidence. So that is why Bulani very important related to that, and also how we try to see everything that the best practices, the good practices, to make us much more optimistic. And in our side, in government side, we try to, of course, further to push further, and also to give the enabling environment, like innovative financing, like the incentive, tax incentive, and recognition and everything. So if we working together, collaboration together, everything is possible.
Okay, that's great. Big hands, please, for our speakers. Thank you, Lani, Nico, Sujala, and Pak Budi. Very, very interesting conversation. And as we come to the end of this insightful session at the Big Idea Forum, it's clear that the journey toward a sustainable and resilient Indonesia requires a collective effort from all of us, the government, leaders, businesses, civil society, and of course individuals like us alike. And today's discussions have shed light on the transformative power of ESG principles in redefining not only business success, but also our shared future. So I want to express once again our deepest appreciation to our distinguished expert speakers for their invaluable insight. Pak Budi, Sujala, Lani, Nico, and of course to you, our audience. And I would like to thank you for your questions and your active participation. And I'm sorry if I didn't have an opportunity to get all of your questions. But as I always say, the key to getting good policies is collaboration. Without collaboration, the policies will not be as good, as impactful, or as sustainable. So let's go beyond profit and let's create a legacy of sustainable success for generations to come. Thank you, and see you in the next Big Idea Forum. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih, Anda baru saja menyaksikan The Big Idea Forum in association with